I'd just like to state an opinion. You said that capitalism is backwards and it should be destroyed. Stupid,
reactionary,
repulsive.
and barbaric. No, I didn't use the word repulsive. That's too mild.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to state my opinion that I think violence is barbaric and stupid and repulsive, and that's my opinion.
But please, may I ask you a question, please? Just for clarification. All right, now, I'm not sure, are you agreeing that capitalism is bad or you don't think it's bad?
I didn't say.
Huh?
I didn't say anything about it.
But what do you think about it?
Capitalism?
Yes.
Well,
well, let me ask you this question.
I live in a capitalist society.
Okay, let me make it easier.
Okay, yeah, please. Yeah.
If you were a slave and I were your master, and the only way for you to be free was to strike your blow to kill me, what would you do?
Be clear here, not confused. I'm a socialist.
Chile is rich. Only the people are poor.
As long as they're working class, you'll have a communist party.
What's that book I got? The Russian guy? Stalin, I got that.
Fidel Castro, support our struggle to the hilt.
It is impossible for capitalism to answer the needs of the American people.
If I am a revolutionary, and you're going to have to keep on saying that.
And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
We are bound to transform society. As far as crushing the party, it's impossible to crush the party because the party is one with the people.
There's capital versus labor. Because there's always conflict.
You don't mean exactly peace talks, you mean capitulation, surrendering. That's kind of conversation between the sword and the neck, you mean.
We know that what we are facing here is actually American imperialism and not only Israel.
The pattern of development in our society has been consistently to deprive the working people of the capacity to make choices.
There is a new African in the world. That new African is ready to fight his own battle and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs.
Are we seeing like the collapse of the empire?
That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere.
And the crisis in the capitalist world has been deep.
La lucha armada es el único camino para la liberación.
But that's all right, because we said even before this happened, and we're going to say it after this, and after I'm locked up, and after everybody's locked up, that you can jail revolutionaries, but you can't jail a revolution. Bye.
Hello. It's been a while, a lot to get into on today's show. When I scheduled this, I think on Monday or Tuesday, it was before the Israeli embassy staffers were killed. It's before the news headline of 14,000 children will die in 48 hours in Gaza due to Israel blocking aid shipments and aid convoys coming in. So we have a lot to get into and some heavy topics. So I don't want us to belabor the point, but I do want to do a quick housekeeping. For those that are watching this live on what is now Red Star Tribune on YouTube, that used to be called Mixed Combat Radio. It used to be a boxing channel for years and years, close to a decade. And I've decided to rebrand it and keep it in line with my other YouTube channel, History of Socialism. And sort of, again, rebrand some of these things. All the videos are still public, even all the old boxing stuff, if anyone's curious about that, or if I have any old Mixed Combat Radio fans tuning in because you subscribed to that channel for years and then the channel changed. All the videos are still there. I have sort of somewhat decided that live streams for the podcast will be on Red Star Tribune. Any new documentaries will first go up on History of Socialism channel, but all content will be posted on both YouTube channels and also my Substack as well. Link down below in the description. Just had to get that out of the way because I know this might be new to some people that are watching. But yeah, anyways, a lot to get into. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm Matthew Hunter. Hit the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff. If you're watching on Twitch, shout out to you, Frank, the one Twitch viewer I have. You're awesome. But without further ado, like I said, we have the massive story, so to speak, and I'm using that almost in air quotes, of the 2 Israeli embassy staffers being shot and killed, I believe it was Wednesday. And that seems to have exploded into the discourse, exploded onto sort of the mainstream media cycle with a lot of different thoughts. And obviously a lot of different organizations coming out talking about it, addressing it. And it's relatively a big deal, but I don't think it's a big deal for some of the reasons people say. NJMP, is that JP from Long Beach? I don't know if it is. Saying thanks for the update. Was a fan of the boxing takes. I appreciate it. Hope you stick around for the political content I've been doing for years now. I still do boxing stuff, but maybe I'll talk about that at the end of the show. But digressing. God, hold on. I apologize. My dog is scratching at the freaking door. Come on. Come in. Both of you. Knuckleheads. I swear to God. Swear to God, dogs. Anyways. The alleged shooter, I don't think it's that much of alleged, but Elias Rodriguez, former member of PSL, Party of Socialism and Liberation. Now the dogs are scratching to get out of the door. I can't believe this. I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. Go. Come on. This is why you don't get pets. This is just why you don't get pets. Anyways, the alleged shooter, Elias Rodriguez, was a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, PSL, one of the bigger, more well-known leftist and socialist/communist organizations in the U.S. So that has caused quite a controversy and stir amongst the communist left in the U.S. Now, I feel like every organization in relative space to this has put out a statement. And I know a lot of people don't like the statements, or there's at least some level of debate about the statements. I'm not really going to get into that because I understand why they put them out for obvious reasons, But I want to get into why this happened, why the sort of mainstream narrative around it, I think, is completely messed up. And you do see some highlights of that poking out, like obviously the neighbor of Elias Rodriguez, who was first, I think, sort of doxxed as the address of the alleged shooter. He came out and had a very eloquent statement. I unfortunately don't have the video for that, but you should check it out. Highly, highly encourage it. But the idea of this being isolated in terms of its narrative, I think, is entirely mistaken. I think we have to be quite honest here about what is the historical contemporary context of this type of violent outburst happening, right? And also, I'll be honest here. I don't think, and I see some, for lack of a better term, ultra leftists, sorry to use that term, kind of really champion this in a way that I think isn't conducive to any productive work. but I'll get into that after I get into the historical context. Now, obviously, those that are watching the show probably already know this. We have at least, over 50,000 Palestinians killed and murdered in Gaza in the last year plus in the recent episode of the Palestinian genocide by Israel. And, these 77 years of ongoing Nakba, I think, is a right way to frame, the history of this. That this shooting of Israeli embassy staffers is not an isolated incident, especially when you look at the quote-unquote manifesto of the alleged shooter that Ken Klippenstein, or whatever his name is, put out. This is very much a political action. If you want to call it terrorism, I mean, you can, I guess. But I think when we talk about 50,000 people being murdered in Gaza, at least, right? Every sort of infrastructure to actually tally and keep those statistics going is basically destroyed. If you look at any video of Gaza right now, it looks utterly devastated to the point where there's almost not a single standing building in most of the videos you see. So the death toll is probably significantly higher. And like I said earlier in the show, we did have the report this same week that if aid was not entered into Gaza, which was being blocked by Israel, and also Israeli settlers as well, non-military personnel as well, Israeli civilian settlers were also blocking aid and have been for a year plus, that 14,000 children will die in 48 hours. That's a real report that came out from the UN. So, in the context of this ongoing genocide, right, 2 Israeli embassy staffers being killed is such a small part of it that to put so much focus on it, I think automatically devalues Palestinian lives. Right? Like, if you know the names of these 2 Israel embassy staffers, but not the names of at least a couple dozen Palestinians that have been killed, what's your problem? You know what I mean? Like, your valuation of human life is completely off. And I think that is very clear from the mainstream discourse around this story, that the focus on these 2 individuals that were killed, while, whatever. I mean, I was going to say tragic, but these are 2 people that are on record being vocally supportive of this genocide. At what point do sort of the chickens come home to roost?
Malcolm X, you were involved in a controversy some months ago with your leader. Is that over?
Well, I've been silent for the past 90 days because of some statements I made concerning the President of the United States, which were distorted.
They were distorted?
And yes.
What did you say, Malcolm?
Well, I said the same thing that everybody says, that his assassination was the result of the climate of hate. But only I said the chickens came home to roost, and which means the same thing. Climate of hate means that this is the result of something. And when I said chickens coming home to roost, I said the same thing.
But you did not say that you were glad the president was killed.
No, that's what the press said. What would I look like saying that I'm glad the president was killed?
Malcolm, this was your first public statement in that 90-day period, is it not?
First time I opened up my mouth in 90 days. That's why I'm talking so fast and so hearty.
You feel, however, that we're making progress?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. Knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull the knife out, much less try and heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there.
Controversy some months ago with your leader.
So, this violent action is not a anti-Semitic act. It's not a sign of rising anti-Semitism in the U.S. That's not real. What this is a, adventurous, isolated individual that clearly was upset, was clearly emotionally distressed by watching tens of thousands of children, women, men get slaughtered on our phones 24/7 for over a year. I don't think we really have reckoned as a global society what that has done. The fact that this genocide is so live streamed, is so documented, the amount of videos of children that are mutilated, the reality is I'm shocked we don't get more of this. I'm shocked we don't get more people like Aaron Bushnell. People that are so driven to extreme action because of witnessing such atrocities and because of the left's, the working class movement's underdevelopment. We have people that are so isolated from any productive work or any collective work, right? And the reality is that for the conversation of armed struggle, I see a lot of people echo or sort of use this topic not to justify this act, because that's not the right word, but to make it seem like it was a positive for the movement, instead of just understanding that it's a natural outgrowth of all of these material factors, right? I think the idea of armed struggle being conducted by isolated people without organization, I think is deeply, deeply destructive to our movement. And I think overall, the idea of you being able to go out and do the struggle on your own is a deeply destructive Western individualistic concept we have. Armed struggle is not taken in vacuum. Armed struggle is not taken in isolation. It has to be well organized. There has to be international support. There has to be community support, mass community support. That type of engagement needs to be done with some actual thought. And it's clear that, unfortunately, the alleged shooter was not in that scenario. I see the conversation being brought up of armed struggle or mass protests being done in South Africa or Palestine or whatever. And I think we have to understand that, one, those material conditions are slightly different in those countries respective to ours. And two, I think we have to understand that when we talk about armed struggle in South Africa, that was deeply organized. That wasn't Nelson Mandela going about himself blowing up stuff or shooting people. That's not what it was. You had above ground, underground organization. You had real attempts at armed struggle. And this is not that. I want to make that very clear, that this is not really productive to the movement. I understand it. It's not something that is inherently evil. It's just a violent reaction to a genocide happening. That's why I play the clip of Kwame Ture at the very beginning of the show. The violence of a slave master versus violence of a slave killing the slave master, these are two different violence. And I think we need to understand that in their social context. I want to play another clip from Fred Hampton.
Fred, where does the Black Panther Party stand concerning the Weathermen, the SDS?
We stand way back from the SDS and the Weathermen, because we believe that the Weathermen action, there's two actions, there's RIM 2 and Weathermen. We think they call them both national action. We think that RIM 2 is national action, Weathermen is national reaction, We think it is anarchistic, opportunistic, individualistic, it's chauvinistic, it's custoristic, and that's the bad part about it. It's custoristic in that its leaders take people into situations where the people can be massacred, and they call that revolution. And it's nothing but child's play, it's folly, and it's criminal because people can be hurt. We say that they're doing exactly what the pigs want them to do. When they take people down and just do nothing, play around, and the pigs are prepared for this, and they'll wipe all of those young people out. We think these people may be sincere, but they're misguided, they're muddleheads, and they're scatterbrains. The only way we can show them is to criticize them like we're doing right now, and then leave from here and go to the federal building and have a demonstration that's to educate, a demonstration that is disciplined and organized, you know. And that's what we're going to have to do, and let them see the examples.
So I just think that a lot of people are kind of jumping online to have like the best answer. And I think if we take a step back, we understand the situation very clearly about what it is. It being a natural outgrowth of genocidal action, it being unproductive because it is unorganized significantly, and also does not meet the material conditions probably at this time. The reality is that armed struggle today in the U.S. is not a reality. Like today, right now, in the next 24 hours, armed struggle by an organization is not going to work. But we have seen people talk about escalating the type of actions that organizations do. Taking, the protest, marching down, downtown Main Street to the local weapons manufacturer, your local port, blockading shipments. That type of work, I think, and that type of discussion, I see more and more. I think moving in that direction for community defense is very, very key. In certain states like California, obviously, the type of, carrying of arms is almost unpractical in above ground work. So, organizations or coalitions like the Community Self-Defense Coalition, which I wrote an article about, check out Substack, link below. But, what they do is all unarmed, but what they're doing is chasing down ICE agents. They're putting their bodies physically on the line as community defense for their neighbors to not get arrested and oppressed and repressed by federal agents. So we do see that this type of escalation happening, but it has to be deeply organized. You cannot do it alone. And unfortunately, this person allegedly, did that. It did it on his own. And the threat or the worry about further state repression on organizations, activists, obviously it's in the continuum of this is already happening, that we have, over 600 students basically being deported at this point in time. We have tons of activists that have been locked up in the last 5 years. I think that's something that's deeply, deeply misremembered or underremembered about how many of our activists are locked up or have faced prison time in just the last 5 years. And then there's also the reality of look, in LA, it's not the same everywhere else, but in LA, 7 unhoused community members died every single day in 2023. 7 unhoused members of our community died every single day in Los Angeles an entire year. We're talking about over 2,000 people, right? Gone. But all the focus is on these 2 Israeli embassy staffers, and it's being manipulated into being an anti-Semitic action when that's clearly not what this is. It's a political action. You can call it terrorism. I think I'm generally fine with that. If the mainstream news wants to call this a terroristic action, that's fine, because I think definitionally that's what it is. But what separates this terroristic action from what, say, the PFLP doing bombings in the 1980s is that, the PFLP was organized. It had mass community support. It had international aid. It was able to do the certain things of armed struggle that an individual just cannot do. But anyways, what else do I have here? Hold on. Again, to put this in the context, let me pull it up here real fast. I apologize, did not get it up. I blame capitalism. That's what I do. I blame capitalism for giving me a old computer. And I'm frozen. Let's see if it still works. I hope you guys can hear me. Okay, let me see if it shows up on this one. Boom! There we go. Nope, it went away. Okay. Don't know why. There we go. Okay. So a recent study came out conducted by, was it Haaretz? Yes, right there. In the 22nd of May, surveying 1,005 Jewish Israelis. What's the exact one? Oh, sorry. It was published by Haaretz. It was conducted by Penn State University. My apologies. I did know that, and I forgot. My apologies. Found that 82% of Israelis support the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. I want to repeat that. 82% of Israelis support Jewish Israelis. I should specify that. It's not Israeli Arabs. Support the genocide, total ethnic cleansing of Gaza. 2 million people being killed or forcefully displaced. That's the state of the Zionist society in Israel. Is that 82% of the people support just outright genocide. I hope you can't hear my dog scratching the door. I'm not letting them back in. It's ridiculous. In a response to a question on whether the Israeli army should act in accordance with the biblical story of the Israelites and their eradication of all of Jericho's inhabitants during the conquest of the city, 47% of Israelis responded yes. That's wild. 65% of respondents also believe there is a contemporary incarnation of Amalek. Like, this is a deeply, deeply fascistic, sick settler colonial society. And it's no surprise that the U.S. has had such a difficult time dealing with it, because, I mean, the U.S. is also a deeply sick settler colonial society. But that's what this context of this shooting is. Let alone an historical juxtaposition, right? I saw, I think it was it Mohammed El-Kurd bring this up. In 1939, a Jewish refugee in Paris shot and killed a Nazi German diplomat. I mean, do we condemn that? You know what I mean? Like, what? I condemn the genocide. I will always condemn the genocide. I may have critiques for the violent reaction to that genocide, especially from places that aren't on the direct receiving end of it, right? Like, I have no critiques for Palestinian organizations engaged in armed struggle. I have none. They're the ones on the receiving end of genocide. I have none. I may have critiques for people in the U.S. that want to engage in armed struggle right now for Palestine. But I think that's slightly different. You know, Half Truth over on Twitch, and I think you're underestimating how strong the propaganda against communism is. Well, I don't know how that's in relation to Palestine right now, to be quite honest. I mean, unless you, I mean, I'm curious, Half Truth, what the connection in your mind is on propaganda against communism with Palestine. Because if you're like me, there's a really good actual connection there, but I don't. I want to know where your head's at. I'm curious. Regardless, Yeah, 82% of the Israeli society. Oh, they're responding to somebody else on the Twitch chat. No worries, Half Truth. No worries. I get exactly what you were saying there. Yes. They're talking about the U.S. left not being as strong as it used to be. There's obvious truths to that. What else? I swear to God, that dog. I'm going to be pissed. I'll play another clip here as well. Israeli minister.
צה"ל סוף סוף מנהל מערכה נגד השלטון האזרחי של חמאס, ולא מתמקד רק בתשתית הצבאית. אנחנו מחסלים שרים ופקידים וחלפנים וגורמים במערך הכלכלי והשלטוני של חמאס. בעוד ימים ספורים תיכנס החברה האמריקאית בעזרת השם לעבודה.
So we have seen U.S. contractors, private military contractors now in Gaza. We do know that Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump are planning to expel the entire population of Gaza. There's the entire Project Esther aspect here in the U.S. That I don't have time to get into. But again, it's very clear that the pressure put on the left or progressive forces to condemn any violent outburst of genocide is completely one-sided to the actual genocide itself. Mainstream news will never really address that in its actual, valuation. 50,000 human lives versus 2. Like the 2 are way down here. The 50,000 are way up here in terms of importance just because of it's 50,000 people. That's how it works. Digressing. There were some other stuff I wanted to talk about on the show. I'm just going to address it kind of in brief and give my thoughts. One is Bolivia. It's something I want to talk about in what was originally scheduled as like the headline or part of the headline for the show. Evo Morales and his faction of MAS in Bolivia. Last time I saw, we're marching towards La Paz, the capital of Bolivia, to officially sort of declare his candidacy for presidency of Bolivia, to officially, put it into the paperwork. Luis Arce, who was/is the leading member of MAS, technically speaking, or a faction of it, the current president of Bolivia has sent police to basically brutalize the indigenous movements and unions that are supporting Evo and are sort of transporting him to the capital. And I've been trying to keep track of this story as best as I can on what the breakdown is between these two individuals, Luis Arce on one side, who Evo Morales is claiming as sort of a collaborator with the West, with imperialism, that he has betrayed MAS and the indigenous movements. And then you have Luis Arce sort of claiming that Evo Morales wants sort of authoritarian control over MAS in the country, which is just, again, hearkening to U.S.-centric stories that came out in 2019. It's very odd. Very sad, to be quite honest. I mean, the MAS movement in Bolivia was kind of a shining example in Latin America for many years in terms of developing indigenous and working class movements in conjunction with each other for sort of progressive change. This sort of infighting is deeply, deeply sad. I don't have some like massive analysis from it. I do want to try to get like a Ben Norton on, or what's his name? Is it Oli Vargas, I think is his name. I think he's really good on this stuff. I might try to get them on the show to sort of go in depth on this story. I think it's very, very important. Frank in the chat saying, "What's up, MCR Matt?" I like the rebrand. Great convo. Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Hope all is well with you. There's also, tons of stories and headlines, videos coming out of people being arrested by ICE that are either found out to be, one, total U.S. citizens, like have their real ID on them, or people that have green cards, permanent residents. Obviously, the very famous story right now is Mahmoud Khalil, Mahmoud Khalil, who I believe was just able to finally hold his child for the first time. This sort of rampant repression by Donald Trump. I just had an interesting conversation at the boxing gym today for all you boxing heads out there that still watch the show. I was at the boxing gym today. And they're talking about like Mexican bandas being deported by the U.S. And it's crazy how I think the tide is really turning in terms of like mass populace really being against this, being more aware of it. How do we channel that into real action? Again, I always will cite the Community Self-Defense Coalition in Los Angeles, also Inland Empire, San Diego as well. I think they're doing a great job challenging Donald Trump's fascism, especially towards his immigration policy. But yeah, I think a lot of people need to start being ready, organized, and prepared. Without further ado, I might actually end the show a little bit early. I just want to do sort of an inaugural live stream. The story of obviously the embassy staffers being shot, that became a big topic of conversation. I hope I addressed it as best as I could. If there's any other questions or comments in the chat, please let me know. But we're probably going to head out of here kind of early. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Hit the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff. You know what to do, right? Come on. Hold on one second. So, that's it for the first Red Star podcast, Red Star Tribune podcast. I haven't really fully thought it out, to be quite honest, on the whole rebrand. I just wanted to change the name. Trending Now Network was the original umbrella name I created back in, I think, 2020. And originally it was supposed to be a channel that covered movies, like TV shows, music, and politics, news. It was supposed to be everything. And I was going to sort of slowly get Mixed Combat Radio to be the sports show over there. And that never panned out. For obvious reasons, I became a communist and I started organizing. So content creation wasn't a big priority for me. The Karl Marx documentary that I am working on, hopefully that'll be out in the summertime. At worst, in the fall. Depending how in depth I get, because I feel like it's gonna spiral. It's gonna be like an hour and a half long documentary, much longer than the one on settler colonialism, just because I feel like I have to go in depth on Marx to a degree. What else? What else is there? Substack articles up there. I might have an article published in I've been told it's going to get published in a great outlet that I'm always a fan of. I may have some of their books over there. You can't see them. But hopefully that happens soon as well. What else? Hit the like button, share the show, all of that fun stuff. Links down below in the description. Frank in the chat saying peace, brother. Free Palestine. And fuck the police. Yep. Always, Frank. That's right. Never forget. it is always fuck the police and free Palestine here on this channel. Have a great day, great evening, great night, wherever and whenever you are watching the show. Peace.